Welcome back to BL6 webinar series. During this session, I am going to discuss with you another new chapter which is standard costing and variance analysis. What is important part of this chapter? Variance analysis that we have done, which does not mean that standard costing is not important. That is also important, but I have given priority for variance analysis. So, if you look at previous webinar series, there you can see comprehensive set of questions that I have selected from ACCA, and we have discussed that variance analysis related questions, and all variances relating to direct labor, direct material, variable production overhead, fixed production overhead, and sales we have discussed. That is done. If we have time, we will see whether we can invest some quality time during this time also to go through variance analysis again, little bit of theoretical aspects. But from today's topic, the key part that I am going to discuss with you is what? Standard costing. How do we set standard, right? What is the use of standard that we have once we set up those, and what are the drawbacks of the standards? So, these are the key areas I am going to discuss with you. So, if you look at 1 to 4, what is standard costing? How do we set standards? Budget and standard comparison. Some of you are thinking budget is the standard. So, standards are fully equal to budget. No, there are similarities and there are differences. So, what are the similarities and what are the differences? We need to discuss. Then fourth one, criticism of standard costing, which means drawbacks of standard costing, will be discussed during this session. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 outcomes. So, all these 4 covers 2.1.1, that is the learning outcome number. Explain the importance of standard costing. So, that is the learning outcome, covers these 4 subtopics, right? Fine. So, now you have fair understanding about what we are going to do, and once we complete this, what learning outcome will be covered in your study pack. So, that is important. So, earlier sessions, if you look at, which means not recently completed session but previous webinar series, you can't see this learning outcome you can't see the chapter and the learning outcome relationship, but in this session you can see that. That's one improvement that we have brought to this presentation, right? Fine. Anyway, number 1, what is standard? Mokadda standard කියලා කියන්නේ? What is standard costing? Very important to understand. Standard cost is a predetermined estimated unit cost. Don't forget, predetermined. කලින්ම determine කරනවා. කලින් අඳුරගත්ත estimate කරපු unit එකක cost එකක්. So, if you take this marker pen, right? If you take cost of the marker pen, to produce this marker pen, you will incur direct labor, you will incur direct material, you may incur production overhead, you have to have fixed overhead, absorb. So, all these elements, cost elements, you calculate for 1 unit, you estimate for 1 unit, and say this is the cost of producing this marker pen, which is called standard costing, which is predetermined estimated unit cost based on historical data, based on assumptions. We estimated cost per unit. අපි ඒකට කියනවා මොකද්ද? standard costing. මේ යුනිට් එක ප්‍රොඩියුස් කිරීම සඳහා යන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් කොස්ට් එක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් කියලා කියන්නේ අනුමත. ඒ කියන්නේ පිළිගත් cost එක. standard සම්මත කරන ලද cost එක. standard cost. Right? Used for inventory valuation and control. We can use it for inventory valuation as well as controlling purpose. The standard cost shows full details of the standard cost of each product. Full detail of standard cost of each product. එක product එකක් ගත්තොත් full detail of that product. Cost, all cost elements of that product you can see there in standard cost card. එක product එකක cost card, standard cost card එකක් ගත්තොත් ඒ product එකේ තියෙන all cost element you can see. All the cost elements you can see. Right? So example, look at this. Standard cost card product 1, 2, 3. If you take 1, 2, 3 product, that's the product name, right? You can see these cost elements. What are they? Direct material. You have material X and material Y. To produce product 1, 2, 3, 4, you need two types of material. Material X and material Y. From material X you need 3 kilograms at 400 per kg. Kilograms 3ක් ඕනේ, 1 kilogram එකක් රුපියල් 400 ගානේ. Material Y 9 liters. Material Y kilograms නේ වෙන unit of measure එකක්. 9 liters at rupees 200 per liter. ලීටර් එකට 200 per liter, rupees 200 per liter. ඒ වගේ 1800 is the cost. 9 into 200. Direct labor, grade A and grade B. There are two grades. 6 hours at 150, 8 hours at 200 per unit. Labor hours only, direct grade 1 එකේ labor only, grade B labor only. 6 hours and 8 hours. Right? Thereafter, so those are direct cost. Those are direct cost. Then standard cost, standard direct cost එක ඒ දෙක එකතුව. Thereafter you have variable production overhead incurred and standard variable cost of production. ඒ දෙක එකතු කරාට පස්සේ variable cost එක එකතු කරාට පස්සේ then fixed production overhead, then full production cost you can derive, and administration and marketing overhead cost you can figure out. Thereafter standard cost of sales you can calculate. Thereafter you can calculate standard profit by adding margins to sales, and finally you have standard selling price. You can derive standard selling price after all these things. So this is the format, or this is the example for standard cost card, which is the predetermined estimation for product 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And this is full detail of standard cost of this product. So we need to establish this cost card for all the products that we have when we operate in our day-to-day business life, normally under management accounting. Management accountants are doing this, right? සාමාන්‍ය අපි product එකක standard cost එක කියන එක system එක තුළ maintain කරනවා. Thereafter we monitor standard versus actual. We compare standard versus actual. Then the differences we identify as what? Variance. The variance analysis කියලා කිය අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තේ. Variance analysis means what? The difference between this standard and the actuals, right? So this is a standard estimation, but actual cost can be different. You want 3 kilograms to produce 1, 2, 3, whereas actually you may require 3.1 because of some other reasons. So then the usage is different. You wanted 3 standard, but you deviated from 3 kilograms and you used 3.1. Usage different. So then we call it as material usage variance. Sometimes let's say per kilogram price 400 is the standard, but because the inflation of some other inflation or whatever the other reason, you had to pay for 50. So then material price variance will be there. So price change. So both quantities can be changed as well as prices also can be changed. So those changes, usage changes or price changes will capture to what? Variance. So we analyze those in variance analysis. Management accountant will do this. For you to do variance analysis, you must have a standard. If you don't have standard, there is no variance analysis. Right? Fine. Done. This is standard setup. By using this, you can do variance analysis. Use of standard costing. Every standard costing on winning to value inventories and cost production for cost accounting purpose. To value inventory. When you value inventory by using what? Standard cost of a product. Right? So this is the total cost of production. So then by using that, you value inventory. Sometimes based on marginal costing, you value inventory, and sometimes based on absorption costing. If it is absorption costing, you ignore standard cost element, fixed cost element, and take the variable cost component and do the valuation and marginal costing. If it is absorption costing, when you value inventory, you take standard absorb fixed cost portion of a product and do the valuation. So inventory valuation purpose, you will use standard costing. To act as control device, which means always you compare actual and the standard. So the difference between actual and the standard is what? Variance analysis. To control the business operation, which means to identify the variations, you will use what? You will use standard costing. So highlighting activities that are not conforming to plan and thus altering management to areas which may be out of control and need of corrective actions. There's a question. Read this. Very lengthy question. Finally they are asking, prepare standard cost card. Now we need to prepare standard cost card for the joy, that's the product, using the above information. Then අපි මොකද කරන්න යන්නේ? Standard cost card එකක් හදන්න යන්නේ by using the given information. Right? Fine. Done. Read it. Blocks make one product the joy. That's the product name. Two types of labor are involved in preparation of a joy, skilled and semi-skilled. Skilled and semi-skilled. Skilled labor is paid ₹1,000 per hour and semi-skilled ₹500 per hour. Right? 100 and 500 per hour. Twice as many skilled laborers as semi-skilled laborers are needed to produce a joy. That we can manage. 4 semi-skilled laborers are needed. So they are talking about labor cost in first paragraph. Standard labor requirements. Both usage and rates they have given. A joy is made up of 3 different direct materials. Joy made up of 3 different direct materials. What are they? 7 kilograms of direct material A, 4 liters of direct material B, and 3 meters of direct material C. A, B, C. Those are the 3 materials that we are using in this product. Direct material A cost ₹100 per kilogram. Direct material B cost 200 per liter, so kilograms and liter for A and B, and C cost of rupees 300 per meter. So kilograms, liters and meters, those are the three measurements. Variable production overheads are incurred at blocks company at the rate of 250 per direct labor hour. 250 per direct labor hour. Direct labor hour එකට අපි ගෙවනවා 250. ඒක තමයි අපි incurred කරන rate එක, right? Variable production overhead. A system of absorption costing is in operation in blocks company. So they are using absorption costing method. So then you know, when you value inventory, you have to absorb fixed cost also into unit of output. The basis of absorption is direct labor skill hours for the forthcoming accounting period. Budgeted fixed production overheads are rupees 250 million and budgeted production of joy is 5,000 unit. Budgeted overhead they have given 250 million and budgeted production of joy is 5,000 units. Administration, selling and distribution overheads are added to product at the rate of 1,000 per unit. Administration, selling and distribution cost. Okay. Thereafter all these things, markup of 25% is made on joy. That's the markup. Finally, they are asking, prepare a standard cost card for the joy using above information. Based on the given information, you need to calculate what? You need to prepare cost card of joy, right? Fine. Let's see. Standard cost card. Yeah, they are asking standard cost card, right? Product joy. First they are talking about what? Skill labor, but normally in production cost standard cost card you have direct material, right? Thereafter you have direct labor. A joy is made up of 3 different direct materials, 7 kilograms of material A. Material A 7 kg and material 4 liters of material B. Material B 4 liters, right? And direct material C, 3 meters of direct material C. C 3 meters. Right? 3 meters of that. Thereafter they are saying direct material A cost 100 per kg. 100 per kg and direct material B cost 200 per liter and C 300 per meter, right? 300 per meter. So here 700, 800, 900. Total cost 1,700, 2,400, right? 2,400. 2,400 total. Thereafter, direct labor. There are two types of direct labor, right? Two types of labors are involved in preparation of joy: skilled labor and semi-skilled labor. Skilled and semi-skilled. Skilled and semi-skilled. What they are saying, skilled labor hours paid 1,000 per hour and semi-skilled 500 per hour. 1,000 per hour and 500 per hour. We need to figure out number of hours. Twice as many skilled labor hours as semi-skilled labor hours are needed to product joy. Twice as many skilled labor hours as semi-skilled labor hours needed to produce joy. 4 semi-skills. 4 semi-skills තියෙනවා. 4 semi-skill hours. මේ වගේ twice only skill labor hours. ඒකනේ කියන්නේ මේනේ. බලන්න. Twice as many skill labor hours as semi-skill labor hours are needed to produce joy. 4 semi-skill labor hours are needed. Here 8,000, 2,000. Total labor cost 10,000. 10,000. Right? Fine. So this is standard direct cost. How much? 12,400. අපි මේකට කියනවා standard direct cost. This is standard direct cost. Done. Then අපිට තියෙනවා variable production overhead. They have given variable production overhead cost. How do we calculate? Are incurred at blocks company at the rate of 250 per direct labor. 250 per direct labor hours, skill hours. 250 per direct labor hours, skill labor hours. Skill labor hours kiya konde 8. So then 2,000, right? 2,000. When you add variable production overhead, you have standard variable production cost. Standard, all are standard. Variable production cost. Not overhead, production cost now. හොඳට බලා ගන්න මේක. මේ ඇවිල්ලා variable direct cost. Here variable direct cost. Here variable production cost. Don't say overhead. This is not overhead. 14,400. 14,400. Thereafter we have, they are using a system of absorption cost is in operation at blocks company. The basis for absorption is direct skill hours, direct skill hours, absorption. Basis for absorption. Right? We need to calculate overhead absorption rate, we need to calculate by using direct labor hours. Right? බලමු දීලා තියෙන information මොනවද කියලා. Right. The forthcoming year budget fixed production overhead 250 million. 250 million is the total budget fixed production overhead cost, and budget output production 5,000. Divide by 5,000. Right? 5,000 divide කරන එක නෙමෙයි. total අපි දැන් absorption cost මොකක් absorb කරන්න මොනවා base කරන්නේ skill labor. Skill labor එක product එකකට ඕන 8 hours. Here 8 hours. Each hour will pay 1000, that's a different story. මෙතන ඉඳලා total hours ගන්න නේ. නැත්නම් අපි මෙහෙම හිතමු. Total hours required 5000 into 8 40,000. 40,000 only. Overhead absorption rate fixed cost. Overhead absorption rate 250 million divided by 40,000. $625. So fixed production overhead 625 absorb කරන්නේ මේ වෙලාව පැයකට per hour no. Here total number of hours බෙදුවේ. If you divide by total number of hours per hour rate, how many hours? 8 hours. $5,000. $19,400. අපි ඒකට කියන standard full cost including fixed cost. Standard full cost. So this is standard full cost. Right. Then after the selling administration cost, straight away they have given as 1000 per unit, right? Admin selling and distribution cost. 1000 20,400. So 20,400 is what? Standard cost of sale. This standard full cost. බලන්න තියෙන categories ටික. Standard direct cost එක අපි හෙව්වා, standard variable production cost හෙව්වා, standard full cost. After that standard cost of sale. හරිනේ? Sale එකත් එක්ක standard cost of sales 20,400. After that they are saying margin. So for that we have to add profit margin. Profit. Total cost again 20,400 වලින් කීයද කියන්නේ? 25% markup. This is the 100. Yeah, 40%, 25%. Markup margin අපි calculate කරන්නේ. Profit how much then? $5,100. If you add that 25,500. So this is the selling price. Selling price. So this is the selling price, right? Fine. So this is standard cost card. So normally when we present standard cost card, all these elements will not be included. So what element will be included in standard cost card, right? In standard cost card, you'll include direct material, how much? 2,400. Direct labor 10,000. Then variable production overhead. So this is standard direct cost. Same 12,400. Standard direct cost. Right? Thereafter variable production overhead. 2000, 14,400, right? 14,400. Standard variable, that is standard variable production cost, not overhead, then fixed production overhead. Fixed production overhead you have 5,000. Sorry, they are using absorption costing, right? Yeah. Sorry, we want contribution. If you want, you have to stop here. Sales 25,500. So this is the contribution, right? So deduct selling variable cost from sales from variable cost, 11,100. So this is how you can calculate what? Contribution from the standard cost card. Direct material, direct labor, direct production, variable production overhead cost. This is total standard variable production cost. From that you deduct selling from you take the difference between that and sales. You will take contribution, sales minus variable cost, right? Fine. Right. This question you can read, MCQ question, right? Setting standard. Identify which of the following statement is not true. Varadi prakasiya. Not true. What is not true? Right? Variance from ideal standard are useful for pinpointing areas where close examination might result. Before we come to this, we need to go through this also. Thereafter we can come to that question, right? Standard costing as control technique. This we have discussed. Because standard costing you can compare with actual. That is the controlling mechanism. Thereafter you can identify reason for deviations. If they are favorable variations or unfavorable adverse variance, you can identify root causes for those variance and take appropriate necessary actions to come out from those worst case scenarios, right? Difference between actual and the standard are called variances. So that's the control intake point, variance calculation. The standard costing therefore involves the following: the establishment of predetermined estimates of the cost of product or service. Establishment of predetermined, that's the standard, right? Then collection of actual cost. Once you predetermine standard costing, then collection of actual, then comparison of actual cost with predetermined estimate. That is called what? Variance analysis. The predetermined costs are known as standard cost, and the difference standard and actual known as variance. The process by which total differences between standard and actual results analyzed known as variance analysis. That's a subtopic of this chapter, number 5, right, that we have done during previous webinar series. When you set in standards, how do you set standard? There are 4 types of performance standards. Standard set karna kota there are 4 types. May standard අපි set කරන්න පුළුවන්, right? 2 kilograms, 3 kilograms, 4 liters, let's say 8 skill labor hours, 4 skill labor hours. These are standards. When we set this standard, there are 4 types: ideal standard, attainable standard, current standard, and basic standard. There are 4 types. From that, examiner can set up nice questions. There's a question after this, we can go through after this, right? Fine. Ideal standard means that's the ideal situation. There are no wastages. Perfection. This is what the exact requirement. Perfect scenario, it's required 3 meters, 8 hours, 4 hours. Niyama ideal situation එක. එතනින් එහාට tolerance නෑ මේක ඇතුලේ. Ideal එකේ tolerance නෑ. Wastage වලට ඉඩක් තියලා ඒව නෑ. To produce 1 unit of joy, it's required 4 hours. That's the ideal. It's required 4 liters of raw material B. That's the ideal. Ideal, not ideal, ideal situation, right? These are based on perfect operation condition, perfections, right? No wastage, no spoilage, no inefficiencies, no idle time, no breakdown. මේවට allowances තියලා නැහැ. breakdowns වල allowance තියලා right. මේ 4 liters තියමු 10% normal loss එකත් එක්ක. ඒව නැහැ. No tolerances. No wastage. මේ idle time පැය 4ක් තියමු. ඉතින් මේ product එක හදන්න ඇත්තන පැය 3මාරෙන් හදන්න පුළුවන්. පැය භාගයක්. No, nothing like that. 4 hours mean 4 hours. Perfectly, right? So when you set up standard based on ideal situations, ideal factors, right? Variance from ideal standard are useful for pinpointing areas where a close examination may result large saving in order to maximize efficiency and minimize wastage. When you set up standard based on ideal cases, you can monitor closely those standards and you can come to big savings. Why? Because you are trying to stay with these usages and the prices. So if you monitor this, you will not deviate from this. Then you can have huge or significant efficiency improvements and savings basically. However, ideal standards are likely to have unfavorable motivation impact because reported variance will be always adverse. Sometimes the reported variance always will be adverse. Why? No tolerances for wastages, spoilage and inefficiencies. Make achieve කරොත් හරි අමාරු achieve කරන්න. Perfect scenarios එහෙම නැහැනේ ලෝකේ. මේ 8 hours වලින් deviate වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේ 300 rupees වලින් deviate වෙන්න පුළුවන්. 7 kilograms වලින් deviate වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Normally in each and every product there's a wastage, normal wastage. You can't produce with this perfect scenarios. Therefore, always you will end up with adverse variance. Therefore, employee demotivation can happen, right? Employees will often feel that goals are unattainable and not work so hard. Employee right, මේ goals නම් achieve කරන්න බෑ. මේ perfect scenarios වලට ගහපු goals කොහොමද අපි achieve කරන්නේ, right? Employee mindset will be like that. So that's the impact when you set up standard based on ideal cases. The second type is attainable, little deviation from ideal situation. These are based on the hope that standard amounts of work will be carried out efficiently, machines properly operated or material properly used. Perfection එකෙන් පොඩ එලියට ඇවිල්ලා. Efficiently use කරොත් මෙච්චරක් 8 hours යයි. Right? හරියට අපි ගත්තොත් 300 rupees වලින් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ not the perfect but you keep some allowances. Some allowances is made for wastage and inefficiency, not big. Some allowances you will keep. දැන් මේකෙන් පොඩි ideal එකෙන් පොඩි එළියට ඇවිල්ලා පොඩි allowance ටිකක් තියෙනවා. That is practical. Then if well set, they provide a useful physiological incentives by giving employees a realistic but challenging target. So here you will if you set up standard based on attainable standard, right? You will give some realistic targets to employees because there are wastages, spoilages, inefficiencies included taken into account when you set up standards. So then employee motivation also will improve, no? Right. Podi allowance එක තියලා තියෙන අපිට වැරදි වලට. Inherent limitation වලට පොඩි allowance එකක් තියෙනවා. That's fine. That should be there. So that will come to employees' mind. So that is big help for them to achieve their targets. If it will say, more realistic, fine. Then third type, current. අපි මේ දැන් යන based on historical information that we have, currently it takes 3 meters. Currently it takes 4. That is not the ideal. That is not the attainable. Currently මේ දැන් ඊට වඩා අඩු වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, ඊට වඩා වැඩි වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. That's fine. අපි මේක base current standard set කරනවා. Current situation. These are based on the current working conditions. Current wastage, current inefficiencies. Then තියෙන තත්ත්වය අනුව base කරගෙන. The disadvantage of current standard is that they do not attempt to improve current level of efficiency. මෙතන ඉතින් පැය 8 නම් පැය 8යි. පැය 4ෙන් පැය 5ෙන් 6ෙන් කරන්නත් පුළුවන් මේක. But we are not going to achieve that. Hey, අපිට current standard කියන්නේ පැය 8ෙන් කරපල්ලා. Right. පැය 8ෙන් අපි කරමු. Whereas you can do this within 7 hours also. But we don't worry about it. Right? Therefore, current standard sometimes, not sometimes, most probably will not focus on improvements of the organization. Right? Because they are worrying about current situation of the country. Sorry, current situation of the product. Right? Current standards you will consider, current conditions you will consider as what in standards, which is not good basically. This is not focusing on the improvements. Then fourth one, basic, very basic. Right? These are keep unaltered. Sorry, unaltered over a long period of time. May for 8 hours කිව්වේ දැන් අවුරුදු 10 කලින් 2010. තාමත් දැන් මේක improve efficiency වැඩි වෙලා දැන් පැය 7ෙන් කරනවා. But we don't worry. 8ම තමයි ඉතින්. 7 kilograms ගියේ 2010 වල. දැන් පොඩි අලුත් manufacturing process ඇවිල්ලා අලුත් machines ඇවිල්ලා මේක දැන් 5 kilograms වලින් කරන්න පුළුවන්. We don't worry. We go with the basics. You will never change standards for a longer period. So those are basic standards, right? And maybe out of date, sometimes out of date, right? They are used to show changes in efficiency or performance over the long period. They are used to show the changes efficiency. So when you compare with these with today's actual, you can see favorable variations most probably. So then you can see the performance improvements over the period of time. Basic standards perhaps the least useful and least common type of standard in use. Normally basic standards most of the organization they are not using. They are changing their standards some after certain time period, because no point of using basic variance if there are improvements happen over the period of time. You have to take into account all these improvements and revise or restate your standards for controlling purpose. So any organization can set up their standard based on ideal situations, attainable situations, current situation and basic situations, but most probably what is good, attainable basis to set up the standard. Question, read this. Identify which of the following statement is not true. What is wrong? You need to understand. What is the wrong statement? Right? Number 1. Variances from ideal standard are useful in pinpointing areas where close an examination might result in large cost saving. Yes, that is correct. That we have discussed, ideal. B. Basic standard may provide an incentive greater efficiency even though standard cannot be achieved. Which is wrong, no? B describe what? That describe ideal standard, not the basic standard basically. Right? Provide many incentives greater efficiency. Basic standard may provide incentives to great efficiency even though standard cannot be achieved. Standard cannot be achieved when those are ideal bases. So ideal situation cannot be achieved. That's a perfection. Perfections are not realistic to achieve. So B explain you what? Basically ideal situation. So correct answer is what? B, which is not true. But let's see C and D. Ideal standard cannot be achieved, and so there will be always adverse variance. That we have discussed, yes. If the standards are used for budgeting, allowance will have to be included for inefficiencies, correct. Current standards or attainable standard are better basis for budgeting because they represent the level of productivity which management will wish to plan for. Yes, most probably budgeting cases you need to consider current standard as well as attainable standards. Done. So then there are two types, price and the usage of each and every standard. Direct material usage price, labor usage price likewise. So how do we set direct prices? Direct prices you will set up by using purchase contract already agreed. From that you can take price as standard price. Price discussion with regular suppliers. Regular suppliers sath katha karata price tika. Forecast movements, availability of bulk purchase discount. So these factors you will consider when you set up standard price of direct material. May 100, 200, 300 decide karana use karana basis tika. Right? Agreed prices with suppliers, agreed prices with discussions with based on the discussion with regular suppliers, discount, all these things will be considered. Price inflation can cause difficulties in setting standard realistic price. Material cost, let's say rupees 10 kilograms per kilogram at the moment. Next 12 months it can be grow up by 20%, so which means next year it will be 12 rupees per kilogram. Api kiyana metana 100 කියලා. But because of the inflation it will be 120 rupees. By 20% it has been increased, let's say. So then it is difficult for us to compare, set up the standard. So what standard price should be selected? So එහෙම වුණා මොකක්ද අපි select කරන්න ඕනේ standard price එක? Current price 10 kilograms 10 rupees per kilogram, but average price will say, let's say 11 rupees kilogram. මොකක්ද අපි ගන්නෙ? 10 ගන්නවද 11 ගන්නවද? This is the answer. Both are possible. Either you can go ahead with 10 rupees or you can select by keeping some allowances for inflation 11. Both are possible. If current price, if you consider use as standard, the reported price variance become adverse soon because you will knowing there is a price increment, you are setting standard as 10, then actual will be definitely higher. So then you have a adverse variance. Then estimate mid-year price. Then 20% වැඩි වෙනවා 10 ඉඳන්. ඒතර 12 වෙනවා. අපි හැබැයි mid-year 11 කියලා දානවා. 11 කියලා දාපම මොකද වෙන්නේ? First half of the year you will have favorable variation, whereas balance year you have unfavorable variation. දැන් මෙහෙමනේ. Standard එක අපි ගන්නවා 10යි කියලා. Current. Right? You are expecting to increase by this 20%. So then 12 will be price. අපිට current එකට ගියොත් එහෙම definitely will be adverse. Right? Mid year එකට ගියොත් එහෙම අපි ගන්න 11යි කියලා. එතකොට first half of the year. Right? 10 ඉඳන් 11ට එනකල් favorable. 11 ඉඳන් 12ට යනවනේ මේක. මේක හැල adverse. Right? So here මෙතන first half එක favorable වෙන්න පුළුවන්, balance half එක adverse වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So that's what this explain. Direct labor rate. Direct labor rate එක කොහොමද ගන්න? Labor rate per hour, how do you take? A separate, you can talk to work study department. You have different departments in your organization. Work study department will give you by analyzing numbers. This is the rate per, not rate, that is usage. You can talk to HRB department. HR department කතා කරලා පැයකට ගෙවන ගාණ ගන්න. Separate hourly rate or weekly rate will be given for different labor types. හැම එක්කනටම නෙමෙයි different managers ලට මෙහෙමයි, skill laborers ලට මෙහෙමයි, semi skill ලට මෙහෙමයි කියලා HR department එකේ දෙයියෝ ආඩ. the average hourly rate will be applied for each grade, right? Similar problem to those described in material price can be met when setting standard because of the inflation. අපි labor rate material rate එක තිබ්බ ප්‍රශ්නෙම labor වලටත් තියෙනවා. අපි standard set කරාට inflation එකකින්ද market condition ඉඳ වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන් rate එක. overhead absorption rate. Overhead absorption rate, you know, you have to calculate absorption rate based on the budgeted figures. Fixed production overhead will be predetermined. You know that, how to calculate it. Read it. Simple to understand. Resource requirement. Resource requirement, you will talk to whom? To get material usage variance, usage and labor efficiency, which means how many kilograms? 7 kilograms, 4 liters, 3 meters. Here, how many hours? 8 hours, 4 hours. So when you take it, you will take it from different parties. If you read this, material usage and labor efficiency, technical specification must be prepared for each type of product. Maybe expert will give you this detail. Maybe work study department, you can take it, you can take this detail from them. So you will incorporate some wastages also to these usages to you know, because of the inefficiencies. 7 kilograms වලට පොඩි wastage එකක් තියලා 8 hours වලට inefficiencies build කරලා you will incorporate, right? Read this, you can understand it. Then this is important, budget and the standard. Some of you think are right, budget is the standard, not always. This is important, right? Budget is quantifiable monetary plan for future period. Budget එකක් කියන්නේ අපි future period එක results ටික quantify කරනවා. Sales මෙච්චර වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Production එක මෙච්චරක් වෙන්න ඕනි. Material මෙච්චර ගාණක් අපිට use කරන්න වෙනවා. මෙච්චර overhead එකක්. That is quantifiable monetary plan for future. Standard also future, right? It's a predetermined quantity target that can achieve under certain condition. That is predetermined estimation. That's also you will use to evaluate future. So both are future focus, right? So these are the similarities of that. Both involve forecasting. Standard as well as budgeting used for forecasting. That's one similarity. Second one, both used for what? Controlling purpose. So you compare budget versus actual and standard versus actual. Always both used for what? Controlling purpose. Right? Those are the similarities. Keep that in your mind. So that will help useful. What are the differences? So these are the differences. First difference, budget. Budget will give you give plan total aggregate cost. Budget එක දෙන්නේ plan total aggregate cost, whereas standard will give you per unit standard cost, right? Shown unit resource usage of single task. Second difference, budget can be prepared for all functions even though output cannot be measured. Output එකක් නැතත් budget එක හදන්න පුළුවන්. Selling and distribution cost මෙච්චර වෙයි, right? Fixed cost එක මෙච්චර වෙයි. Output එක නැත හදන්න පුළුවන්. But limited standard cost can limited to situation where respective actions are performed and output can be measured. Output එකක් තියෙනවා විතරයි standard එකක් තියෙන්නේ. Output එක measure කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් විතරයි standard cost එක useful වෙන්නේ, right? Budget එක අපි දෙනවා standard monetary item එකක් විදියට express as monetary terms. Numbers වලින් quantify කරලා දෙනවා. This standard also same, need not express monetary terms. ඒක අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නැහැ. For example, standard rate of output does not need financial value. Financial value එකක් ඕනේ නැහැ, right? Numbers වලට ගන්නවා but financial value එකක් ඕනේ නැහැ. Those are the similarities and differences between budget. Can be tested. Keep this in your mind, right? Go through it again. So criticisms. These are the criticism standard. So drawbacks. මෙන්න මේක කරන නිසා මේක criticize කරනවා. Number 1. Standard costing and new technology. Because of new technology, standards will improve, but those will not reflect in the standards. මේ kilograms 7යි කියන එක වෙනස් දැන් මේක හරි මේ if you take current market, business processes, new machines that we are using, this will be changed. අන්න එකයි කතන්දරේ. Standard costing has traditionally been associated with labor incentive operations but cannot be applied to capital incentive product too. මේක අපි කියනවා මේ new technology එකත් එක්ක වෙනස් වෙන්න ඕනේ. හැබැයි වෙනස් වුනේ නැත්නම් හරි අමාරුයි කියලා. Variance analysis concentrate only narrow range of cost. එක්තරා cost එකක් විතරයි අපි consider කරන්නේ standard cost වලට. And do not give sufficient attention to quality and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction, quality we don't worry, don't care. Standard costing places too much emphasis on direct labor cost. Direct labor cost වලට වැඩි emphasis එකක් දෙනවා. Direct labor is only small portion of the cost. Direct labor කියන්නේ එක part එකක් විතරයි in manufacturing, modern manufacturing environment. Because අපි ඉස්සර standard මේ standard වල semi skill skill කියලා වෙන් කරලා කඩලා දෙනවා දෙකට. මේ traditional method එක. But today's context labors ලා නැහැ. ඔක්කොම machines වලින් වැඩ කරන්නේ. බහුතරයක්. Some of the products are fully automated. Therefore, you have to give more attention on that rather than labor component. Then use of standard costing relies on existence of the respective operation and relatively homogeneous products. අපි බලන්නේ මේ එක හා සමාන product ගැන. If there are two different products, you can't apply standard costing. Right? අපි මේක මේ product එක නම් මේක standard costing එක මේක actual cost එකත් එක්ක බලන්නේ. Homogeneous. Right? So those are the criticism of standard costing. Right? Fine. Role in standard costing in modern standard costing and variance. You can use this as planning tool. You can use this as control tool. At the planning stage, you can set up standard to carry out comparison between actual and standard. You can use standard as controlling tool, and for decision making, you can use standard costing, and as improvement and change. So you have to improve processes and to take some change decision, you can use standard costing. So with this we have gone through these four, right? Four topics, four subtopics. What is standard costing and how do you set up setting standard by using four types, and what are the similarities between budget and the standard, and what are the criticisms of standard costing. So with these four we have covered learning outcome number 2.1.1. So after this, from subtopic 5 onwards, they are talking about variance analysis that we have done during previous webinar session, which means last time, not the previous session, last time webinar series, maybe beginning of 2020 or end of beginning of 2021 or end of 2020. I can't remember, 9 or 6 months ago. If you go to that video, you can understand variance analysis. If you have some spare time in future, we will invest some quality time to go through variance related question again. Right? Fine. With that, we have done standard costing chapter. Thank you.